Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the Veterinary Ledger this week. We are excited to talk to Kelly Wilson, who is a remote practice manager. And I think that's I have a million questions, and I'm sure you guys too. And I really just want to know how it works out so well. So, Kelly, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am Kelly Wilson. I am a remote practice manager at Pawsteps Veterinary Center. I've been with Pawsteps since 2016, but been in the veterinary practice or veterinary medicine since I was 15 years old. So
Whoa. Hey, that's a long time.
it's been a hot minute, I would
Uh,
say.
uh, 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 uh. Tell us a little bit about your journey and how you ended up working remotely. Because I think there's so many people out there that are like, you can't be a remote practice manager, right? You got to have boots on the ground. So how are you making
Yeah.
it work?
A lot of research went into this, I would have to say. When my husband and I decided that we lived in Rhode Island and worked in Massachusetts for about seven years, and we wanted to be closer to his family, which we're in Florida, and we also wanted to be near Disney, which we're clearly obsessed with. For our two kids, they're 7 and 6 now, so we wanted to move and be closer for them, and in the little bit more of a warmer weather. So I went to my practice owner, who I worked with for many years, and I was like, I'm leaving the practice, but I have a solution. Because when I was talking to our BGP coach, Julia Marlin, I was like, I don't want to leave my job. I love my practice. I love cost steps. I love everything it stands for. Do you have any resources for me of how to make this work? And so she actually put me in contact with one of her charges that lives in Hawaii, but runs
Oh,
a practice in Alaska and has been doing it for 10 years. And I was like, I have to talk to this lady. I have to talk to her. So after a ton of research, I would say about 4 to 5 months of doing research while we were getting our house on the market, I talked to this lovely lady, and she goes, people think you can't do it, but you have CEOs, you have CFOs, COOs, managers, supervisors all over the country running CVS, Walgreens, all these programs that are still remote. And you can do it as long as you're an organized, detailed person and keep up the communication. And so once I got my research and I had a plan together, I presented it to my practice owner, and he goes, let's give it a shot and see how it's been going. And that was since October 2022 that I've been doing this.
wow. Okay.
So
Yeah.
with that research, did you have to pull together like a list of top 3, top 5, top 10 things? Hey, this is mission critical to make this work. I have to ensure that all these steps are really thought out well.
Definitely. So when I was doing my research, I wanted to make sure, one, because practice managers, you have to be hands-on. You have to have eyes in there. And I think what makes this situation a little bit unique is because I have a partner who is my co-practice manager at Pawsteps. And so she handles more of the medical side, the technicians and the scheduling. I do more of the finances, the admin, and the front desk. But her and we're like twins. So whatever I'm thinking, she's thinking. She says it, I say it. So it's not like the staff is playing mom and dad against each other. They
Right.
know that when they come to me, she's going to give them the same answer and vice versa. So I think in this situation, it's unique because I'm able to rely on her when she's on site in the practice. If there's something that she's unsure of, she calls me. And so I think the biggest thing there was communication, that we had to figure out, how can I stay in contact and keep up the dynamic that people can come to me or come to the manager for anything that they need. And you can ask my staff, I'm available 24/7, even though we preach work home life balance. They know that I'm available to them whenever they need to. And they respect that, but they know that if there's ever an issue that comes up, they can always count on me, or they can always go to Jillian as well.
Which is uncle, right? And solves a lot of problems.
It does, and it's great when you have that partner that you can rely on. And I think
Mhm.
Sean is very, very spoiled because he has Jillian and myself who basically run the practice on a day-to-day basis. Even though I'm not physically there, I'm there. And you can ask the staff. They know that I'm there. I have cameras all over the hospital so I can keep an eye out on everything. And one of the biggest things that I implemented was recorded phone calls. And so I'm able to actually make sure that the staff is, keeping up that friendly attitude with our clients, and our clients are being respectful to our staff as well. So
You really are everywhere.
I'm everywhere. And there's literal pictures of me all over the hospital with all of my famous sayings of please advise, what would Kelly do? So I'm all over the hospital that the staff will know that I'm always watching. So
It's so funny. Do you like look at the camera and then call someone and be like, "Hey, nice shirt"?
oh, I do. I do. Some of the there's only one staff member that finds it creepy, so I don't do it to her. But I always like to compliment my staff and be like, great job on that one client. Please tell my favorite client I said hi, and they'll hand the client the phone, and I'm able to still have that conversation and that interaction with my clients, which is
I love
nice.
that. I love that.
Talk to me about listening to those or playing back the audio recordings. Are you using like an AI transcription to ensure that the staff are using certain words and language and deliverables? Are you just going and actually playing it all back and dissecting and giving good feedback?
So my staff I would have to say I love my staff, and you're probably going to hear me say that throughout this. My staff is pretty well trained and I trust them, but there are times where they will call me and be like, can you please listen to this call? I feel like I've done something or said something that was off and I need your feedback on it. So I will go back and I'll pull up that call. 2 to 3 times a week, I will listen to the calls just to make sure that they're being offered all the services. They're being offered all of the options that they have for appointments. But it's really good. I think in veterinary medicine, a lot of the times hospitals don't back up their staff, and staff leave because they don't feel supported. They don't feel
Right.
valued. They don't feel protected in that sense. In my practice, I value my staff because without my staff, we can't have a hospital. And so we've had quite a few times where, clients were saying, well, this staff member told me this and this staff member told me that, or they were very, very rude. And I'm able to go back and say, unfortunately, no, that's not what they said. And here's the recorded call. And I could present it to them. And, in Massachusetts, you have to let the clients know that they're being recorded. So, because it's not legal otherwise. So it's on our phone call when they call in and they consent to continue with the phone call. And then whenever we call a client, we say we're calling on a recorded line just to protect ourselves and protect our staff as well. But yes, I do go back and I do listen to the calls just to make sure. And if not, I do provide feedback to the staff, and they're very appreciative of it. So
I think that's a great training tool. How are you ensuring, I know you've mentioned it, but how are you ensuring like accountability and productivity? Is it all just watching the cameras? It's got to be more than that, right?
it's a little bit more than that. And I think in this sense, I like to fly back to the hospital. So periodically, like every quarter, I will go up and I will stay a week or two. I still have a house up there where I can stay. I have family I can stay with. And so I just go up and I stay for like 2 weeks and I stay in the hospital and I meet with every single one of my staff members to see what they need. Say, hey, how is this working out for you? How are you doing? Is there any goals that you want to meet? Tell me what I can do for you. So it's like a nice one-on-one that I get to meet with the staff. But I would say the biggest thing is delegation. I find that you put the right people in the right places. So
Mhm.
I have great supervisors. I have great technicians who are over certain things. And so whenever I'm going to day-to-day activities and I see something is not being done correctly, I'll go directly to that person. So it's not like trying to speaking to multiple people. I'm speaking to one person for this one department. Like I have one inventory manager. So if there's something off about my inventory, I'm doing to her. I have a tech manager. If I have a problem, I'll go directly to her. Either I'll go to my partner and say, hey, can you follow up on this? And they'll do it right then and there. So I think it's easier as a manager, when you have the right people in place and you can delegate and then just follow up and keep those people accountable. I think it just all flows very turkey-sydney.
Well, I think too, that's how you move forward with projects, right? Like if you have enough time to focus on the business, then you can work on other aspects rather than making sure inventory is right and checking time cards and things like that.
Oh, absolutely. I
Mhm.
feel like I'm more productive at home, in my office, in my area, than I am actually when I'm in the hospital. Because when I'm in the hospital, I'm all over the place. And I think, if my main responsibility is making sure that the hospital's running smoothly, our finances are in order, our bills are being paid, we're trying to get clients in and figuring out ways to get new revenue, get new clients into our building. I'm able to focus on that because I can relax on the other aspects. I think it makes my job a lot easier in a sense.
And more successful.
Now,
Yes,
before you left for Florida, did you already have that structure in place, all those key individuals in all those different seats and positions?
I did. I did. Well, I say I did, but Jillian and we both did. It took us many years. When I came to the practice, Jeannie was our previous practice manager. She already laid the groundwork. And it was just Jillian and myself who just took it and soared with it with the help of our coach at Veterinary Birth Partners. Having the right tools in the belts will make you more successful. And I think that that's one of the keys to our hospital is that Jillian and myself, we will go to these conferences when we're feeling like we're not able to do something, like we don't have the right tools. We get those tools, we come back and we instill those into our staff members. And we put the right people in the right place, and we feel like that they're not the right people for that position, then we move them around. Then we have that conversation to either build them up so they can be, or either we find another alternate.
So this all sounds amazing, right? The way that you're painting it is like sunshine and roses.
Yeah.
Which is great, but there has to be some hiccups, right?
Oh yes, definitely.
What do those look like?
One of the biggest hiccups I find is the isolation of not being with our clients. The isolation of, I think when you come into veterinary medicine, people have this thing, you're playing with puppies and kittens all day and it's all warm and cuddly. That aspect I miss because it is true at some aspects. So I miss seeing the patients. I miss seeing the clients, hearing their stories, hearing their struggles, hearing their happiness, being that one-on-one with the clients. And when you're remote, you don't get to actually get that sick. Yes, I can see him on camera. Yes, I can talk to him on the phone, but it's not like being in the hospital. So I like being in the hospital. I like moving around. And I think that's one of the hiccups is when you're working at home, you're sitting down or either you're moving around with your computer in your headset, making sure you're getting on the calls. So one of the hiccups is that I guess you're kind of losing that one-on-one with your clients.
Right.
So that client bond as a manager, you do kind of lose that at times, but you get a nice pick-me-up if you go back and you visit your clinic and you work in that building. So you get your cup full and then you come back and focus on other things. So every quarter I'm able to get that fix and then come back regenerized.
Does your team crave more of the fix though? Like, does your team crave you and boots on the ground? Does it impede or impact the culture at all?
So at first it did. And I think I just had this conversation with one of my CSRs and she goes, presence means everything. And even Sean has said this. He goes, I miss having you in the hospital. And it's like, believe me, I miss being in the hospital. Because there's times where my kids are running around screaming. My husband's constantly coming in on his meeting calls. So it does get a little bit hectic periodically, especially when the kids get out of school. But it gets to the point where I do want to be in the hospital. They do miss me being in the hospital. But all they literally have to do, they used to pick up the phone and just have a conversation, or they either FaceTime me throughout the day just to get their little, I would say, Kelly fix in that sense.
Everyone needs a Kelly fix. I need a Kelly fix every now and again.
You're welcome.
So do you feel like you handle the bigger problems? Do you still feel like you get the day-to-day issues or just like the giant mountains and not the moments?
So I think I get more of the giant mountains because, again, I have the right people in place. So they're able to stop it at that level. And if they feel like that they can't handle it, it shoots over to Kelly. And usually those phone calls are either a client who is not happy with the price or a client who's been fired and yet to come back, or it's a client who is just so irate that they can't deal with. That's where I come in because I love those hard conversations with clients. So I love being able to talk a client down. I love to be able to get to the root of the source. And I would say 8 times out of 10, it's not about what happened in the hospital. It's about something that happened in their personal life that they're projecting onto the staff member at that time. So I would say I usually get more of the big issues than any other smartness, because again, the right people in the right place, they handle it before it comes to me.
Talk to me or help us. Someone's listening to this and they say, this could be me. I love to, I have family. It makes a lot of sense if I also have to move. I don't want to leave this opportunity. Talk to the practice manager who wants to co-remote. What advice can you give them?
Really do your research. Really think about if this is what is best, number one, for the practice. Will it work for the practice? Because there's times where it will not work for the practice. There's some clinics that don't have the capability to have a co-practice manager or two practice managers in a sense. You got a lot of the practices out there that have a practice manager. They handle everything. They don't have a time to sit down and really focus on the finances, but they're doing the admin, they're doing the scheduling, they're doing the doctor stuff, they're doing all the medical side. And that, to me, it takes a toll on a manager. So unless you have the infrastructure in place to make sure that you have people in the right place in your hospital, that you're able to step back a little bit, let them focus on that, like you focus on other aspects of the business. I think it would be extremely difficult for that to work. But I think if you really sit down, have a conversation with your practice owner, because I will say this, it will take a lot more money to hire and train a new person than it is to try to retain a person that's been in that position for a while and actually knows the business, is dedicated to the business and dedicated to the practice, instead of getting someone new who comes in there and just, to me, would destroy everything. So to me, I think you definitely need to do your research. You definitely need to have a conversation with your practice owner, and see if it's actually going to work for that practice. And if it does, and you feel like it's going to be a good thing, then you definitely have to make sure that you have the communication with your staff. You have to have the infrastructure for communication. You got to make sure you have the infrastructure to maintain that accountability that we were talking about earlier with your staff, and making sure that you're able to be available to your staff at all times. Because there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be times where you feel like, I can't do this because I'm stuck in a room, I'm stuck in an office, I'm not with my patients, I'm not with my clients, I'm not with my staff members. The place is burning down and I can't be there to fix it. And that's where you really rely on the people that you put in place, or either a co-practice manager.
I think you nailed it though. And I'd love for you to expand upon that more, because it's not just you as the practice manager, right? It's not just your additional team that you have. I think it's the relationship you have with the owner. So can you speak to maybe a little bit of your relationship with Sean, the owner of Pawsteps?
I love Sean, and he knows that. I send him messages all the time. I think my relationship with Sean is kind of unique, and many of the staff members can contest to that or attest to that. When I first started working with Sean back in 2016, and I say this, we have never once had an issue with being disrespectful to each other. He has never once treated me differently than any other staff member. He has always treated me with respect. We've never had an argument. And if we feel like one of us is kind of being, that's a little bit snarky, we would say it. We would have that direct communication. So I think our relationship, we thrive ourselves on being honest, having direct communication. If he's having an off day, you need to go home. If I'm having an off day, I need to go home. So we have that relationship to where we trust each other explicitly. When our previous practice manager decided to retire, however, we did hire her back as a remote CSR. So she lives in North Carolina and works for me, doing the phone calls and stuff like that. So we can touch on that if you want. But when she was leaving, she wanted to pass the torch to me. And Sean and I actually went to a conference in Texas, and we had 4 or 5 days of just deep conversations. How is this going to work? How can we do this relationship, and how can we build the practice up to what it is? Because I think he saw in me that I'm obsessed with Pawsteps. I breathe and live Pawsteps, and I want to make it the best practice ever. To me, and all the other practices that I worked at, Pawsteps is my number one. And I think he saw that. And I think when you have a great relationship with your practice owner where it's a mutual respect and you both have the same goals, you both have the same ideas of how you want this practice to be. And it's not only helping me professionally, but it's helping him because I know he don't want to do this for the rest of his life. He wants to retire. Like most veterinary
Successfully.
distance, like everybody else. But I think the relationship that we have is honest, is respectful. We share the same goals, I think, when it comes to the practice. And I think that's ideal for a practice manager and owner to have when you're working together. And Jillian's the same way. Sean sees us as twins. We're like conjoined twins. So we do everything together. We say everything together. It is kind of scary if you see us together. But I think that speaks to the volume of our relationship, that all three of us build this practice up. And if you have a practice manager and a practice owner that's not seeing eye to eye, there's going to be conflict on a daily basis. You're never going to see eye to eye. You're never going to be able to build the practice up because to me, it starts at the top. And if there's a breakdown from the top, it's gone. It's just going to collapse. And I think that's what makes our practice a little bit unique.
I love it. And I would like at some point to unpack the remote CSR, but I think for today, that's a lot. Let's say, last question. What advice would you give to a practice owner considering having a remote manager for the practice?
Make sure it's the right person that's in the position, number one. So make sure, I understand that a lot of practice owners will hire a practice manager based on education, based on credentials and stuff like that. To me, you need to have someone who is hands-on, who has the hands-on experience of running the practice from the day to day. And not only just the financial side, but to me, having someone who has worked almost every single job in the hospital, besides being a doctor. I never wanted to be a doctor, so I couldn't play that role. But making sure that you need to have a sympathetic practice manager that knows what a kennel assistant's going through, what a CSR is going through, what a technician is going through. And sometimes if you work closely enough with the doctors, you know what they're going through. You know a lot of their struggles. So to me, you need to have a practice manager who is in touch with every aspect or every position in the hospital. You need to have a practice manager who shares your same goals and shares your same reason for doing this, the same passion, should I say. And as long as you have a respectful relationship with that practice owner and that practice manager between them two, I think it'll keep the conflicts down. And I think you'll be able to build your business successfully if you want to have a remote practice manager.
Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and experience. If people have questions, can they reach out to you?
Oh, please do. Yeah. I'm more than happy
And
to answer any questions that you have.
how should they find you?
So you can go to our website at pawstepsvet.com. If you click on contact, it'll be a contact to email the practice managers. That'll come to me and Jillian as well.
Outstanding.